who get charged with being Jezebels are the ones who are outspoken. There would be plenty of people that you could call Jezebel if you really wanted to boil it down to the behaviors that she had that maybe we want to say aren't pro-social, aren't conducive to healthy relationships. But that doesn't mean that her story hasn't been maligned. It's like, I also want to be clear that I don't think either of us have a problem with saying that women commit wrong action, right? That they do bad things sometimes because they are human beings. That does not make them a monolith. For bad actions to be attributed to all women, or for a woman's bad actions to be reduced down to womanly inethicism. That's not a word, but you know what I'm saying? That it's like a woman does a bad thing, and so it means she's a bad woman, not that the action that she did was bad, right? Like, sure, Jezebel had some behaviors and actions that were rude. We're not talking about those actions and behaviors. We're saying she wasn't a good woman, which actually has nothing to do about those other things. And I think that speaks exactly to what you're saying about what are actually the crimes that she's charged for. We could make a court case about some of the other stuff that she did and debate whether or not, anyone's justified in doing them. But no one actually even cares about those crimes. It's the crime of not being silent that is the one that people seem to care about. And I think within this, there's one thing that just sticks out to me so much about the Jezebel story, is that no one ever has anything to say about Ahab. And in evangelical Christianity, there is no problem with telling men to take control of your woman, that you are her religious leader, that you are her spiritual master, that it is your job to teach and educate her how to be a good woman. That is a very common thread through evangelical Christianity. So we want to take that framework. Then whose fault is this to begin with anyways? If you want to use the framework of the people who are vilifying Jezebel, then it's Ahab's fault anyways. So get her name out of your mouth.
He didn't control his woman, right? Yeah.
Right. Like, he was a weak man.
Like, she came
by, of course, this definition, not my belief.
No. I mean, well, your wife came, she came to you and basically taunted him, right? Like, hey, aren't you the king, dude? Like, if you want it, take it. And so it shouldn't have been him. If it was so wrong, why didn't he say, oh, like, no, that's not a good thing to do.
Right.
But gosh, you're me. I mean, there's so many ways you could, like, where's Ahab in all of this? Yeah, absolutely right. Like, he
was too beta.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, another crime that she committed may well have been somehow daring to say that, she was equal in some ways to Elijah. And some traditions record she said something along the lines of, if you are Elijah, so I am Jezebel. So the true transgression was just asserting her authority as equal to the great male prophet. And that's something that, again, that's a hubris, a step too far for the male dominated religious order. And that made her a target for vilification, And so again, does her story serve as a warning what happens when a woman refuses to accept the subordinate role and instead tries to claim her own voice and power? Like, how often do we see, again, to bring it back to today, how often do we see, I mean, we talked about AOC, how many more examples are there in today's society of a man behaves badly, says something, and it's just excused. But if a woman says something that is deemed wrong, she's slandered, she's vilified, she's called all these names. There is a double standard, and it's to my mind, it's not. It starts with noticing it, but it's also to challenge it and call it out when it occurs. And again, it goes back to what we talked about. Last week, a few weeks ago. Like, men need to point. It's great for women to see this because I in some senses it's preaching to the choir, but men need to see this too, and do the costly things to point out when this is happening, and not in a pound the table kind of way necessarily, but in a isn't it interesting? Like, it's amazing what you can diffuse when you come at it from a lens of curiosity. Wow, it's really interesting how you said that. I noticed that you mentioned this about so and so in the office the other day. Like, What did I thought about that. Was that really a nice? Did you really mean? I mean, just to have those challenging conversations. Can we do that? How can we find? How can we make space in our world to I don't know, sort of reclaim Jezebel, I guess is how I would put it.
Yeah.
Reclaim this, taking it from a slur to a symbol in the same way you mentioned, like Lilith has become much more of has become, Lilith fair. Lilith is mentioned in modern culture more. All of these different things. Maybe it's time for a movement for that as well, from a Jezebel perspective. Maybe her name needs to be reclaimed as a badge of honor. And what would a world look like? I don't even know the answer to this. I would love for our listeners. Like, what would your world look like that um, a woman who would not bow, who takes up space without permission or without apology, and who refuses to be erased or shamed, where that was actually embraced and celebrated versus vilified? What would it be
Yeah.
like to have my daughter grow up in a world where her voice, she could say the exact same thing as a man and be treated exactly the way a man would be treated for saying the same thing? Like, and furthermore, why the fuck is that a radical idea? Like, seriously, like, why
Yeah.
is what I'm saying? Why do I think internally like, oh, well, we got, well, yeah, and rainbow, we're gonna have unicorns farting rainbows everywhere. Like, why is my notion or this idea of we're equal, like, literally we need each other, and we cause each other to be better and grow, and there should be respect given? Why is that so crazy of a notion that it's like, oh well, that'll never happen? Why? I don't know. Even just saying that kind of blows my mind, that idea
Yeah.
is just radical enough to get hate mail. To merely say that, hey Reese, you can take up space. I love the fact that you take up space. What else do you have? What you have to say matters and is important. Why
Yeah.
why why does that make me a superhuman being? Like, to me, that just makes me a human, like not a good or a bad person. It just makes me a what I should be. Like, it should be
It's
table
table stakes.
stakes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not some hero because I think that what women have to say is important and should be listened to. We should really look at their story and see what they have to say, what your story is.
I completely agree. I think in using your voice to be the thing that challenges the status quo, that's why it's so scary, is that the people that the status quo benefits have a vested interest in the status quo. And I think part of the undoing of all of that is the reminder that the status quo, well, maybe that's not the right way to put it. The patriarchy hurts everyone. It does. And I think that it's scary to think about what it may ask of you, because tearing down of the patriarchy also asks a tearing down of a certain internal construct, right? Within men. And it's not asking you to not be masculine. It's not saying be effeminate, or, which even if you were, that's not a bad thing. But I think that that's the fear that a lot of men have when they hear this conversation. Well, men, don't let me project anything, so Dennis, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that that's a fear that we tend to see, is this like, oh, well, women say that they want all of these things, but you're never going to date an effeminate, emasculated man. And I'm like, why does everything that you just said emasculate anyone? If anything, it shows the strength of your masculinity to stand hand in hand with somebody. Power is not in everything that you can hold on to at once. It is in what you innately have when everything has been taken away. And it's really asking men to remove the fear of being powerless, because power is smoke. There's nothing to grab onto there. And as long as you keep trying to create it, you are just hurting yourself by saying that this thing that you've invented is real. And again, it's not asking men to turn away from their strength, from their power. It is asking them to radically own their power. If Ahab had stepped into his strength, into his divine masculinity, into his nature of the sun, how could he and Jezebel have ruled side by side? How could he have perhaps aided in some of the ways that her temper did hurt some people, maybe, right? And how could she have helped him step up to the plate more, right? Like, it is this balance. We all have the masculine and feminine within us, and vilifying one or the other gets you nowhere.